Scabies. More often than not, we have large amounts of infectious diseases as far as scabies go. And the interesting part with that is it's not actually seen on the body during the infectious period. And so these people clear through our system and then they go into the rest of the country with that disease. The most important thing is there needs to be a mandatory detention, mandatory removal. That will slow down the process of people coming through here. And the sad fact of it is so many people are coming and so many people are not making it. We're starting to see children 2, 3, 4 years old abandoned on the riverbank by themselves.
And Jakari also asked Agent Cabrera about Trump's proposed border wall, and he said it would indeed be an asset to agents. You know, it's not going to stop everyone from coming through. Indeed, that they would need some electronic surveillance, some other form of detection. But he said, indeed, a wall would be an asset. It would help. So go to INFOWARS.com, watch this video. Border Patrol agent, tuberculosis, and other diseases are spreading easily. Share that video with everyone. Put it out there on Facebook. People need to see that the border agents are speaking out, that this is a real issue. And now we have the Obama administration dumping 4,000 more illegal alien kids into the U.S., and this is during the month of April. So that brings the total to 29,250 kids that have just been dumped all throughout the U.S. And so we can take a look at what's going on in Europe, where Muslim asylum seekers raped a woman, some 22-year-old guys, because they were having a bad day. So this is what we are importing into our country with no vetting system. On the one side, you have a presidential candidate who is putting global politics over the safety of you and your family. And on the other side, well, you got somebody that wants to make America great again. Now stick around because there's more news coming right up. And welcome back. Now today, the final majority report of the Benghazi Select Committee was released. It's about 800 pages, and does it tell us anything new? Joining me now, Margaret Howell. We're going to break this down. Now, what we do know is that when this attack was taking place, the White House was already focusing on some spin.
Spin control, Leanne. That's what I'm calling this. You know, I've been looking at this report all morning long. This is what I found. So at 7:30, the White House had a 2-hour meeting. They knew that Ambassador Stevens had in fact been kidnapped at that point. Here's what they did. They came up with an action plan, a 10-item action plan. 5 of those actions on this list included a YouTube video that had nothing to do with Benghazi. So while the kidnapping was underway, it was all about spin and damage control. There were 2 White House operatives, 2 officials. Their names are Ben Rhodes and David Plouffe, if I'm saying that correctly, and they were prepping Susan Rice to go on national talk shows in the wake of this to do damage control instead of stepping out in front of this and doing something.
Right. And of course, so this is, you know, putting it in context, this was about 50-something days out from the next election. Mm-hmm. So it was all about politics, saving face for the Obama administration, not about saving these Americans that were there.
Mm-hmm. You're absolutely right. So we know that we were in Libya. This operation, it was sold as a mission for these aggrieved people. We needed to be there. Ambassador Stevens actually had a heart for the Libyan people, and he was there because he loved those people. We understand from this report that took 2 years in the making, 7.1 million. The number of per day, I broke this down. If you want to look at it this way, 8,000 a day this committee spent investigating, or if you wanted to do it per page, roughly $9,056 per page of information. It's valuable information. It's worth a read. Congressman Gowdy, am I saying his name right? He encouraged people to come out and read this report. 800 pages if you can stomach it. But the bottom line is that the blame falls on the administration and on Hillary Clinton. That's the bottom line. I can give you the Cliff Notes.
Right. Well, I mean, immediately before people even had a chance to digest this report, you're seeing the Clinton news networks come out and say this is security failures. It had nothing to do with Hillary Clinton, just already kind of getting her off the trouble there. But we know from leaked emails that have already come out that she sent immediately to her daughter, Chelsea, as well as some foreign dignitaries, that they were behind closed doors and immediately calling it a terrorist attack. But to the American people and to the families of those who died in there, they were calling it, a YouTube video.
We're not clear on what the circumstance is. This is an intelligence failure. That's what she was labeling this. You were absolutely right. She was calling it terrorism behind closed doors, but the public narrative was very different than what she was actually calling it. And, you know, it's heartbreaking to know what Ambassador Stevens was going through. On June the 7th, 2012, he pleaded for security. He said, look, September 11th is coming. The anniversary of this is coming. the revolution that's underway post-Gaddafi. Tensions are heightened here. I need people guarding me. I need added boots on the ground. But Obama, he was going to protect that legacy no matter what. Taking the boots off the ground, that was more important to him than these 4 men that died. That's very clear reading this.
Right. And even now, years out, it's still very important to them to get Hillary Clinton in. Obama's going to back her, even though she has kind of snubbed him as well. Here, apparently, they're saying that government officials failed to act on Obama's orders. And so despite President Obama and Secretary of Defense Leon Panetta's clear orders to deploy military assets, nothing was sent to Benghazi. Nothing was en route to Libya at the time that the last 2 Americans were killed almost 8 hours later. And we also know that a fleet anti-terrorism security team sat on a plane for 3 hours. They changed in and out of their uniforms 4 different times. So there was plenty of opportunity for them to get in there and do something about it. But instead, the Americans had to actually be pulled out by Gaddafi supporters, not even by any of our own people.
It's despicable when you think about the facts surrounding what happened to Ambassador Stevens and these 3 other men. It's absolutely inexcusable. And it's not only a failure to act, it's an egregious, it's a dereliction of duty, if you will, because these men, they represent our whole country, and what happened to them, it's inexcusable. Hillary Clinton is trying not to fall on her sword. That this is about saving face. You know, The Guardian did a piece 11 minutes after Trey Gowdy took to the airways and mentioned this report. Hillary Clinton's response was, it's time to get over it. Oh, really? Right. Well, I think it's time to get to the bottom of it, actually.
Absolutely. And we will find out what difference it does make. Minutes before the president delivered his speech in the Rose Garden, there was an email that was sent to Ben Rhodes and others saying there wasn't really much violence in Egypt. And we're not saying that the violence in Libya erupted over inflammatory videos. But then we have Susan Rice going out and saying that. And they actually, some emails that we're seeing between some White House officials, they're saying, whoa, I think Rice was off the reservation on this one, and she was off the reservation on 5 networks. So they didn't even have their whole act together. But we see officials, Hillary Clinton as well, putting all of their focus on how they can spin this and turn it into an attack about a video. And that is getting to the bottom of it. That is where she wants people to move on, because she doesn't want them to see her role that she played in it with her emails that she tried to delete that showed that she was having these conversations with her daughter, counter to what she'd been telling the American people.
You know, deleting emails. While we're on the subject, one Trump attorney, he tweeted something. It was getting major flack on every national media program this morning. This tweet about Hillary Clinton and how she sold uranium to the Russians under her fake charity. How he took it a step further, blaming the murder of Stevens on Hillary Clinton. That's what's on the table here. I don't want people to forget that. I want them to carefully look at these facts and decide her role in this as Secretary of State. That's the most important thing that I can say in this segment, is that it places a lot of blame on the administration. She's trying to shift that blame now to the administration and their decision making. But keep in mind, she was head of our State Department. This was her employee. This was her ground. And to be spinning this as a YouTube video, it's just not acceptable. People are awake, Leanne. They understand what's at stake. They know what's going on. And it makes me sick to hear the spin that's coming out of this now. It's such a disrespect to these men who died.
Right. And we know that there was some security officers there warning everyone, sending out these emails, like you mentioned, that they need help, they need security. This is a suicide mission to have people stationed there. Did these emails make it to the spam folder because people weren't able to send her actually any emails to her private server? And that was one of the big complaints with her setting up her own homebrew server, was that emails from her employees were going to the spam folder. So, you know, perhaps that's one of the reasons why she wasn't able to act in time and to make sure that they had the backup security that they needed to protect these people. I mean, total dereliction of duty.
Right. And the benefit of the doubt, maybe it went to her spam folder. What we do know is that June the 7th email that Chris Stevens sent to the State Department, it was replied back to. He was requesting that step up in security. They said no. That's the bottom line. They said no more. And there isn't any more clear evidence than that. That happens on June the 7th. In September, of course, he's murdered, raped, brutalized, his body torched. Despicable things happened to him. You know, we would be looking at a completely different outlook, Leanne. I would be able to give her the credit that she's due. If she had just replied with a yes, you can have the proper security. We're going to protect you.
And knowing the story of what happened to Ambassador Stevens, to say that she really cared about him as well, it really hurt her. But then to be able to come out and try to save her own skin, to famously say, you know, what difference at this point does it make? Because she really does not want any of the light to shine on her. And I agree, people really need to read that 800 pages. They need to take the time and not allow the networks out there that are fully circling the wagons around Hillary Clinton to get her elected and see that once again, there is a huge issue here that the original lies themselves were being perpetrated to save face for the Obama administration. And now they're trying to do it again for Hillary Clinton. Perhaps the grossest failure on record in U.S. history regarding a situation like this. Yeah. Well, thank you very much, Margaret. Glad to have you on board. Thank you. Well, we'll stick around because Joe Biggs is going to be joining me in studio. We're going to talk about Trump's speech on the economy and what illegal immigration is going to do here in this country to make that even worse.
As it was in the legend of St. George and the Dragon, the European Union is nothing less than a plague-wielding dragon, feeding on the welfare of the European people. And as it was in that very same legend, those that chose to remain under the dragon's control would vote to turn over everything to that dragon. And now, that dragon is on a short leash, meekly begging for a second chance so it can destroy everything in its path. Kurt Nimmo writes, "The establishment is pushing a buyer's remorse narrative in the wake of Brexit, and the globalist George Soros is leading the charge." Soros said during the annual meeting of the European Council of Foreign Relations, "It was in general what you call buyer's remorse. It included everyone, the people who voted for leave, those who voted for remain, and those who didn't vote." According to Soros, the British people are not serious about leaving the EU. They simply want to express their discontent with their political situation in Europe. And now that Brexit is a reality, they are demonstrating buyer's remorse. The corporate media has adopted Soros's narrative.
Is there any chance of a second referendum? Is there any going back?
There's a lot of buyer's remorse, and there's a lot of concern amongst the Remainers, obviously.
ABC News points to a survey poll conducted for the Mail on Sunday after the Brexit vote. It claims of the 17.4 million who voted to leave, 1.1 million actually wished they had voted Remain. And the New York Times went one step further and offered various ways to renege on the vote. For instance, the new Prime Minister might refuse to invoke Article 50 of the European Union's governing treaty and instead act like the vote never happened.
Because if we're going to wait for a successor to David Cameron, further thinking, and we're not going to invoke Article 50 or start the serious renegotiation of our trade relationship until later on this year, actually that is a period of indecision.
Another escape hatch might be the parliaments of Scotland, Northern Ireland and Wales refusing to approve Brexit. On Monday, an online petition calling for a second vote had 3.8 million signatures. Paul Manafort, Donald Trump's campaign manager, said Brexit represents a rejection of globalism and faceless bureaucrats ruling the lives of millions of people. However, globalist shill President Barack Obama would have the American people led astray yet again.
I think it's important to remember that Mr. Trump embodies global elites and has taken full advantage of it his entire life, and so he's hardly a spokesperson for a legitimate spokesperson for a populist surge from working class people on either side of the Atlantic.
Meanwhile, the humiliated, arrogant swine running the EU are unveiling their blueprint for an EU superstate. Nothing less than a sovereign-corroding ultimatum that would propose that member EU countries would lose their right to their own army, criminal law, taxation system, immigration system, and the illusion of the control of their central bank. An all-encompassing totalitarian state that has been in the works all along. The Express UK reports excerpts of the 9-page EU superstate report were published today as the leaders of Germany, France, and Italy met in Berlin for Brexit crisis talks. In the preamble to the text, the two ministers write, "Our countries share a common destiny and a common set of values that give rise to an even closer union between our citizens." Immediately after the Brexit, many people in England texted, "What is the European Union?" Well, simply put, the European Union was created in 1955 at Bilderberg by the very same globalists that have risen to their current status as the enemy of humankind.